Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, really good show today lined up for you guys. Obviously, Pitt receives a commitment today from the Kentucky defensive back, Jaremiah Angelin, a former four-star, a guy that we were certainly involved with just last year before he committed to Kentucky, a very good prospect. Four-star prospect, and man, had offers from everywhere: Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, you name it. Ended up picking Kentucky in the SEC. Didn't work out. Almost like he's taking the MJ Devonshire route at this point, which is really good news for him, as it can potentially lead him to the National Football League. But also, too, Pitt has also contacted numerous transfer portal players at this point between multiple different positions. Some of them might actually shock you from different positions that they're looking at. And the list is certainly longer than this, that's for sure. But we'll go over that tonight. But of course, before we get into it, guys, please like and subscribe to the channel. It certainly helps out the algorithm if you haven't already. Hit the like button on the video, helps out with subscribers, but also, too, helps with the algorithm so other people can see it. And if you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Easy to do, free, takes 2 seconds, but also lets you know when we go live. Also, the player interviews that'll be coming forward here shortly. But also, too, we just did another interview with a Pitt football commit who is currently committed to Pitt. You all know about. That'll drop later on. That was a really good interview. It'll be great to drop to give to you guys some content that's just really good about the reason why he picked Pitt, why other schools didn't fit his system, why he's actually rising in the rankings on Rivals right now. But more importantly, again, let you guys know when we're going live and when a video drops. But of course, the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, as I've said it a million times, a place that's run by two great Pitt men. If you have a Pitt man that you know that certainly runs a business, you certainly want to support them. But also, too, they're really good people. They have a great staff that's there, multiple different varieties of beers, lagers, IPAs you can certainly look at, but also, too, the Fake Slide Pilsner, which helps support the players, and Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Again, guys, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Again, run by Pitt men, always support, Pitt alums, anybody that's in any connection to Pitt. But more importantly, go ahead and get the Fake Slide Pilsner, which helps support paying the players, acquiring talent, which is what we're doing currently right now in the portal, but also, too, supports Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Guys, again, before we get into it here, obviously some of the comments, of course, WRW Pitt in here as usual. Mark's in here. Brock01, he's in here as well. We'll get into a number of these here. Of course, always love it. Smash the like button if you haven't done so. Smash the like button. It hits subscribe. It always certainly helps out the most. And again, always a pleasure and always appreciate everything you guys do for the channel. JJ, you are the only Pitt YouTuber that talks positively about Pitt. Thank you. I try to stay positive for the most part. Obviously, there's times where you got to get more negative, unfortunately, with some of the stuff that Pitt does at times. But I think that the fan base certainly gets fatalistic at times. I think it's just important to sit back, really reflect on what Pitt's plan is, what they're doing, why certain guys leave, better opportunities, more playing time, things of that nature. But again, I'm beyond appreciative. But yeah, I take the positive outlook. But I'm certainly I can get on Pitt at times, especially when coaches or players do things that they shouldn't be doing. But I think just right now, especially in the grand scheme of things where we are in terms of the actual college football calendar, you look at it as it is, really nothing to be super negative about. Because, one, I think the transfer portal has truly affected every team in college football, and certainly not just Pitt. And we've certainly, if you follow me on Twitter, you've certainly seen I retweet everybody's stuff. I have coaches that send me things across the country that just says, "Hey, this might be a good idea. It might be a good idea for Pitt fans to take a look at." Jay, I heard you like this. This is pretty funny in terms of guys that are transferring, maybe on their fifth school. It's always good to be able to show that to people. So I appreciate it as always. Not like the local media. Yeah, that's probably one thing that I really have a real gripe about. Just the local media here, I think, is really lacking. We're lucky to have a guy like Doran Dickerson at 93.7 The Fan. I think he does a tremendous job. Pat Bostic gets on 93.7 The Fan, does a really good job. Chris Peak's obviously there during the season. But overall, I think when you look at some of the negativity in terms of the local media, just the bias towards whether it's Penn State, mostly it's Penn State, but there's a little bit in there, obviously, with West Virginia at times. We'll see what goes forward here, but there could certainly be some real bias that's there, and it's really a shame. Where we're really lacking in terms of talent when it comes to the local media. Really hope that they get that figured out, but we're lucky to have certain people that just keep it straight. Praise Pitt when they need to, and then criticize them when they need to. But yeah, some of these guys certainly just criticize Pitt just to criticize them. Of course, always please like and subscribe to the channel. Helps the algorithm. And always thank you. Mark, agree, WRW. So appreciative of the positive energy JJ delivers. Calls it like it is without crazy doom and gloom. Things to work on for sure, but so much positive going on for this university. Couldn't agree, Mark. Again, it's never all sunshine and rainbows. There's plenty of stuff to work on. We've talked about that with the offense in terms of the gelling of the offense, but also to the tempo. One of the things that they're continuing to learn right now is the tempo of the offense and getting that down. I think they did a really good job towards the end of the spring camp. Still a ways to go. The summer camp will certainly help them out, but then obviously too, when they get to fall, they'll really have all the installations in. They'll really understand the graspings of the offense to where you'll really have those 4 weeks in August to where you're really prepping and you're really fine tuning what you need to do. And also finishing out some position battles, whether it's in the wide receiver room, the offensive line, the quarterback room between Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein, but even too on the defensive side of the football, where you're looking at the defensive end room, which will be fun to look at, and obviously too the defensive tackle room, which will be fun to look at. What's the skinny on Anglin? We'll go over that here very shortly. Any intel on Adu? I saw the tweets today. I thought it was very interesting that he put out on his Instagram welcoming Jaremiah Angelin. I mean, it kind of sounds like he was at Pitt, but I mean, there hasn't been any official announcement, anything like that. Everything that I have in terms of coaches and sources are certainly with college football. But I think Anglin, I'll tell you what, I do, man. From what it looks like, he was on campus. He visited, even after visiting, with North Carolina, even here in PA. That's huge. If you're on campus and you didn't agree to anything with North Carolina, that's huge. And that's a positive step in the right direction, to say the least. Did Anglin have any other suitors once he entered, or was his eye set on Pitt from the jump? Any updates on Jaden Wayne and Anthony Johnson? We'll get into that here too. Keep staying positive, JJ. It's always good to have hope. Unfair Sports, if you haven't followed him, covers numerous topics in terms of college football, but this guy right here is a legend in terms of putting out great content. I put him in the realm of Jason Watkins and Coach and Fanatic Sports, that just across the board. Kuz's Corner, all great people. If you haven't done so, subscribe to Unfair Sports. Oklahoma guy as well. Toss him down, horns down. Give him a follow. Really one of the best. But as we get into it here, guys, let's talk about here. I think this is a great question that answers a bunch of these, at WWR Pitt. Did Anglin have any other suitors once he entered, or was his eye set on Pitt from the jump? Any updates with Jaden Wayne or Anthony Johnson? I think the first one, obviously, with Anglin, one of the things that was very noticeable when he hit the portal is a lot of these guys really have the idea of it's not the flash. It's not about, going on visits and seeing 10 different schools and the pictures and whatnot. They went through that as a freshman. They went through that as, high school seniors and going into their freshman year. These guys that enter the portal now understand, okay, what college football looks like, even with a year in college football. You saw Rasheem Biles, a guy who was a true freshman last year, talked about it as a business. There's certainly relationships around it, but obviously when you're looking at college football for where it is, it's a learning step, and especially that first year. I think Anglin had an idea what he wanted to do. I think he went into the portal, and it was a business decision. He looked for things that were really important to him, were really important. One, development, going to a place where there's an opportunity to play, compete. He's a guy that came out of high school. He had offers from Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, Pitt, Kentucky. You name it, from SEC, the SEC to the Big Ten, the ACC. He had offers from everywhere. There were certainly suitors for him. I can tell you this, between the SEC and the Big Ten, there were numerous places. I just think that Jaremiah, when he looked at it, he was focused. And one of the things he looked at is obviously the reputation of Pitt in terms of development in the defensive backs area. You've certainly seen Archie Collins and Corey Sanders throw out a lot of good content on X recently, talking about, Pitt leads the way in the ACC when it comes to defensive backs that have been drafted. That certainly hasn't been shy or kept away from the national media. That's been well known. MJ Devonshire went into the draft, went to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think he's going to be another guy when you look at him like a Dane Jackson. I think picked in the later rounds. He's a guy when you're at Pitt, man, you're playing man-to-man coverage. There's no over the top. There's no over the top help. You're playing quarters coverage. You're playing press man. I mean, it's mano a mano, and that's what the NFL is. And that's why these guys, when they go to the NFL, they're ready to play. Whether it's a Jordan Whitehead, a Jason Pinnock, a Damar Hamlin, and you have obviously even back in the day Darrelle Revis, but in terms of recency, Dane Jackson, and then obviously now you have MJ Devonshire that certainly leads the way in terms of going to the National Football League, and there's been plenty of others that have gone through there. The numbers speak for themselves, and when it comes to Anglin, I'll tell you what, this guy was well known, a guy who was certainly coveted. And again, guys, look, he had offers from Alabama, Auburn. When he went into the portal, he certainly had offers. I believe it was officially from Auburn, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Alabama. I know in the Big Ten, it was Wisconsin, Michigan State. Obviously in the ACC, you had NC State, Pitt. I mean, the offers were just, through the roof when you look at these guys. And obviously he's a redshirt freshman going into this year. He'll have 4 years of eligibility. Personally, I think he's going to vie for playing time because he is that good. I think when you look at Pitt's cornerback room, I do like the talent that's currently there. I think that this talent group has certainly got deeper. One of the things, obviously, you look at Taman Lynham, obviously the transfer out of Nebraska, injured really towards the middle portion of camp. He really didn't get to show too much, but I see him as a guy, once he gets healthy, he'll be on the field. Rylan Gandy is a guy that was certainly out there. Noah Bigelow, Tamarian Crumpley. Now you have Jaremiah Angelin in there. You've got Rashad Battle. So you really got like 4 or 5, potentially 6 guys in the cornerback room. You're saying, hey, these guys can certainly step on the field for us. They can play and have really good minutes. Guys are out there, especially too when it comes to reps. You look at Taman Lynham. I think when he came from Nebraska. At times they would play between back and forth. They would have their chances to where they jump on the field to where Nebraska would play that man coverage, but then they would play zone. He loves that man coverage. He's certainly a specimen. I've seen him in person. The guy is an absolute, just freaking nature when you look at him. A great young man, just has the character that you want, hard worker, loves watching film. I think, you watch his tape at Nebraska, it was certainly really good. But I think overall, when he steps into this room and he gets the coaching and the technique from an Archie Collins or Corey Sanders, in this case for the cornerback room, Archie Collins, who has done just a hell of a job in terms of his development with cornerbacks at Pitt and sending them to the National Football League, it's second to none. And it certainly has built over time to where you look at it, the reputation is there. And again, we had multiple draft picks again. You look at the ACC from top to bottom, Pitt has led the way and will really finish second. Clemson has led the way in draft picks in the last 5 years, but Pitt's number 2. They've been there. Obviously, this past year, Florida State had a big year. This recent draft, obviously, they finished up yesterday. But when you look at Pitt over the last 5 years, they've sit second. They're in double digits, almost to 20 draft picks. And in the last 5 years, I think it actually now, after this past year, over 20 draft picks in the last 5 years. Guys who have certainly reached their potential, have shown plenty of talent. Pitt had back-to-back years between Kenny Pickett and Kalijah Kancey. He went in the first round. I think, obviously Matt Gonsalves is a guy that certainly fits the mold. He went third round this year to the Indianapolis Colts, obviously reuniting with Charlie Partridge up in Indianapolis, which would be great. But it's to Brock, to answer your question officially, he knew what he wanted. And look, he had offers from everywhere, but I think that the focus point was, man, the relationship was already built. And I'm a big guy in terms of relationships, whether it's in business, personal, anything like that, whether it's in the football field, whether it's college football, the NFL, in retail, banking, anything. Relationships truly do matter still. And I think these guys, when they get older, they start to see it more and more And I think that he realized, one, he's going to get developed here, but two, he's going to get taken care of. But the players at Pitt get taken care of a lot better than a lot of other places. I mean, we look at Louisville, for instance, here in the ACC, just to stay in the ACC, look at what they're going through right now. Their NIL collective, they talked about paying players. Well, now they really weren't paying players. They were shorting players. Pitt's never done that. They've always been on time with things, especially, too, with payments. But also, too, they've talked about how when that number comes in, it's official. That's what you're getting. So honesty is the best policy. Relationship building, all that stuff goes into a line. And when your ducks are in a line, everything happens and going forward. And I think, when you look at Jaremiah Angelin, he knew what he wanted. Certainly had the relationship built. And then when it just came to a matter of time, he visited. He knew what he wanted to do. The numbers speak for themselves. So very happy with that. And obviously Jaremiah, obviously guys here, obviously I have the notes here tonight. Plenty of notes to go over here. Plenty of different guys that were looked at in the portal. Still plenty of guys they're looking at in the portal. But certainly leads the way. Jaremiah is a great start to what they need to add. We talked about this before. I talked about how they really wanted one corner. They take that off the board. I think that potentially they go for maybe one or two offensive linemen. And then obviously, too, I think you look at really 1 to 2 defensive ends as well. And then if we're really happy, go lucky, if we have the room, you go after a wide receiver and potentially a linebacker, a veteran linebacker at that. But personally, me, I really wouldn't be too concerned about it. The linebacker room is certainly deep with talent and young talent, to say the least. Keep staying positive, my man, as always. I think Anglin might have seen the Devonshire being drafted yesterday and coming from Kentucky as well. Adam, I think certainly there was a conversation potentially between the both of them. But I think this really comes down to, when you look at him, it comes down to a lot of relationships. Archie Collins is well respected in college football. He's well respected in terms of being able to develop players. He's shown it. The body of work shows it. And I think that he maybe had a conversation with Devonshire. Obviously, Devonshire was there before he ever got there. I mean, Anglin's only been in Kentucky for 1 year. But I think that the relationships that he built with Archie Collins, Pat Narduzzi, you look at those guys, I think when you look at it from a 30,000 feet perspective, that probably went a lot farther of a way. Maybe did he reach out to MJ Devonshire? More than likely to say, hey, what did you think your development? And it certainly panned out really well. Just relationships are key in recruiting still. And everybody talks about NIL. That stuff's truly important. One of the most important things, if not number one, but that one or two can switch back and forth, especially when it comes down to transfers and what they're doing in terms of relationships to where they want to go and get developed. What facts account for Pitt towards the bottom in ACC recruiting and portal transfers over the past 4 years, and especially not landing any top 50 D linemen players in this portal cycle on 3? Yeah, Byron, we've talked about this before. Again, it talks about one player's going out and players coming in. That's actually on there. That's something you can look at. It's directly there. Don't know how you missed that, but you need to look at it. Obviously, too, they haven't landed any defensive linemen yet because they're bringing them in for visits. They were more important. If anything, they were looking at their own roster and who needs to go. We need 85 scholarships. That's all you have. We were at 97. So you need to drop those off. I think that's number 2. Also, when you look at the rankings at on 3, go look at the amount of teams that are above Pitt because of the guys they brought in. Colorado's towards the top because they got 40 guys coming in from the transfer portal because 50 guys have left. I mean, that kind of stuff, again, those are facts. Again, I don't care if you like the facts or you don't like the facts. I'm not here for your feelings. I'm here to tell you the truth. And guess what? On 3, they count players that leave the program and then they come in. When you have guys that leave, you have more guys that leave than then come in because you're over a scholarship limit. That's going to hurt you, especially on 3 or any recruiting service. That's a fact. The names here we have tonight we'll go over. Guys like Anthony Johnson, defensive end from Illinois. They've contacted. There's going to be a visit lined up. Also, too, Josh McCartney, defensive end from Michigan in the transfer portal. They're bringing him in, okay? Also, two defensive ends from Miami. Jared Harrison Hunty, defensive end from Miami. Also, too, Jaden Wayne, defensive end. Jaden Wayne was a top 30 prospect in 2023. So again, we talk about facts. I don't know where you get your facts from, but you got to start looking at it, Byron, because the facts are there. They're looking at guys, and they're only bringing them in right now for visits. They got to look at their own roster and get to under 85. I think that's the biggest thing. And we've talked about that before, and you continue to hit on that. I don't understand it. Even in the Pitt Panther fanatics, I don't understand that. But Jason Watkins, my man, if you haven't done so yet, Hall of Fame College Football Podcast, give him a look. Obviously, if you have not subscribed to him, please do so. Him and Coach are the best. I go on their show numerous times because, one, they're incredibly intelligent. They're both two great individuals, high character. They're incredible people. Continue to watch their show and always join it because they truly are the best. And again, like I said, Unfair Sports, Jason Watkins and the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with Coach. Obviously, they're great. Coach I over Fanatic Sports, incredible. Couz's Corner for Pitt fans. Obviously, you want to check on the rival at West Virginia. Go take a look at him. Obviously, he covers everything in terms of the Big 12. And obviously, too, with West Virginia, they're great. Mountaineer Paul does a great job. Give those guys a look. Kitch, what are they going to do about the punter situation? I'll tell you what, man. I can tell you this. I think that there is a great discussion about this, and I talked about this off camera with a bunch of people, with sources around the country. I think people are going to be so incredibly happy with Jacob Bronowski, the new special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. He has done a lot of work with the guys that are currently on the roster. Obviously, Caleb Junko, and I'm drawing a blank on the other name, of course. Two punters that we currently have on the roster. Those guys are coached up. I told people I was there during the close scrimmage, and again, he was delivering punts. He was doing a hell of a job. He looks a lot different than he was the year previously. I don't know if it's when the lights come on, he gets nervous, or what happens. But I think when you look at that guy, when I watched him, behind closed doors, when the closed scrimmage, he was doing a hell of a job. And I think that there's been a lot of conversations with people that I've had that said Jacob Bronowski is coaching these guys one-on-one. He's doing a lot more coaching, and again, I love Dave Borbley, and I think he did a great job for the numerous years. He turned us around, especially in terms of the offensive line, but he's another one towards the end of his tenure, really the last 2 years. I'm not really sure how much coaching was going on. Jeremy Darveau fits that mold of a guy who's a lot younger, brings the energy, incredible coach in terms of technique, what he looks for in offensive linemen, starts it from the feet up. I think that really when you look at offensive linemen, it's all about the technique and the footwork. When you look at guys and you're recruiting them, recruiting offensive line is the hardest because everything that you do in terms of player analysis is all about projection, where they go. Where they are now, they're never going to be good enough where they are now. It's depending upon where they go to where they really meet the needs in college football. The way I look at it is that a high school football game is the speed of a college practice. If that makes any sense to you guys, it's incredible how fast these games are. Now, that's practice. And then you go to a college game. It's a whole different world in terms of what you're looking at. I think that these guys that we've brought in are doing a hell of a job in terms of coaching these guys one-on-one and really producing and getting the best out of them, finding the deficiencies that they currently have and building on this and getting them out of those areas to where, hey, here's the deficiencies. Here's how we really help them out. But I think in terms of the punter situation, I think those are the punters that we have. Unless somebody really pops up and says, hey, that's the guy we're going with, that's what we're going to be having. I think that, when you look at Jacob Bronowski, I think he's done a hell of a job. A guy who brings certainly a lot of energy, a guy that I think that we currently needed. You look at the positive energy. You talk about the players that, when they got interviewed during spring camp, first thing they talked about, the energy is different. The positivity's there. But also, too, I really like the leadership that's on this team this year. I thought I liked it last year, but then you started to see the season go on, and there were certain players that quit. Some of those guys are no longer on the roster. The guys that we have here, I think when you look at guys like Brandon George, he'll be a leader this year. Cruz Brookins, I love the leadership that he brings and the energy that he brings on a day-to-day basis. Javon McIntyre, a guy who's a leader. He's been a leader since he's been here. I mean, you just look across the board on the defensive line. I think Sincere Edwards, a guy he's only a young guy, true freshman. He has stepped up in numerous ways. Francis Breu, a guy who continues to step up. Elliot Donald has led the way in terms of being a leader. Sean Fitzsimmons, Nate Matlack, those guys have been here over for now the spring. Those guys continue to step up and bring leadership. And you look at the offensive line, B.J. Williams, a guy who's going to be a veteran. He's going to be, I count him as a veteran because the reps he got as a true freshman last year truly show. But, he'll be a leader this year. Obviously, Branton Taylor, an efficient leader this year. Jackson Brown going to be a leader this year. Ryan Bayer, leader this year. I think that the repetitions they got last year was huge in terms of what goes on to the movement of what this team's going to. I don't know if you saw the Twitter, if I can actually pull it up here. He talked about it. If I can find it here. Bruce Brookins put out a tweet today. I'll probably try to share it with you guys here if I can do that. That would be great if I could. Let's see here. If I can find Cruz. There we go. Also, Cruz he's a good Pitt man. If you haven't followed him yet on Twitter, I think you should do so. Good man. All right, let me take this off here. Let me share this real quick. Take that there. I'm going to share the screen. Here we go. I think you guys should be able to see that very clearly. Cruz Brookins put up a tweet today, which I thought was really, really good. And it just goes to show the leadership that's involved with this team. And again, he's a young guy, but he continues to lead. Puts out a tweet today that says, we put our head down at Pitt. We put our head down and work. They can have the clicks and likes. It's going to be different this year. Hail to Pitt. And obviously you see the moping and crying of some of these Colorado Buffalo fans. And obviously Cruz Brookins says no shot at CU, big respect to Colorado. And then he said something nice there, but Colorado fans continue to cry because they lose 60 players every year in the portal, and they just absolutely get purged. But obviously Luann Bear, obviously an incredible Pitt fan. She's the best if you're not following her as well. But obviously too, you just gotta love the comments and the positivity that's here. Always good. Go back to my brand here. There we go. But I'm just telling you, you look at the leadership of this team this year, I think it's different. I really do. Let's go look here. Mike Porosky. So far, good keeping Ty Diffenbach around. Think he sticks with Pitt. I think he's a solid development piece. Yeah, Mike, I don't have any, to be honest with you, I wasn't really fearing him to lead to begin with. I think he's done a hell of a job in terms of development from his, from the year he got here, obviously jumping in where he was a place, in high school where he played wide receiver, moved to quarterback. He's got a strong arm, certainly elusive. You saw that, a little bit of his movement, especially in the spring game. Had some good passes that were there. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's got a lot of potential moving forward. I think right now, when you look at the pecking order right now, it's probably Nate Yarnell, Eli Holstein, and then Ty Diffenbach. Personally, I think they can't afford to lose him. You need at least 3 quarterbacks, sometimes even 4. You saw this past season, we had, Jerkovic at one point. Then we had, Christian Bayer. Then we had Nate Yarnell. I mean, we had numerous guys go through, through the cycle. Obviously, hopefully we don't go through that again this year because that means we're losing games. It's not a good thing. But Ty Diffenbach, I don't expect him to go anywhere. He comes from a great family. Tremendous, hardworking young man, to say the least. Incredible work ethic. Watches numerous amounts of film. A guy that wants to continue to learn, but he's got the talent. He has it. And I like him a lot. I think he's got a bright future here, and he's going to continue to battle and continue to fight for certain spots. I think he's got a bright future here, and I'm happy he's here, to be quite honest with you. Jason, relationships absolutely matter in recruiting. It's not just money, because they're starting to realize that the real money comes in the NFL. And I've said this numerous times, and I'm so glad Jason brought it up right here. Amen. Amen. And it's just the real money, the generational wealth. And, we talk about, I was talking about Colorado. Deion Sanders actually had a good comment. Said, hey, I'm looking to build my sons with, generational wealth. He's not going to fall into the NFL. But it was a great comment about generational wealth where it comes in the NFL. It's not in college. Okay. This is chump change type of stuff. And that's really what it's for. It was never meant to be competing with the NFL or anything like that. The real money is in the NFL. And if you do what you're supposed to do, like, for instance, prime example, the Philadelphia Eagles drafted a cornerback. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Hell of a player. Drafted a cornerback out of Toledo. Nick Saban talked about he pretty much admitted on national television, he's retired now. he tampered with it, tried to get him to go into the portal. It was one of their top initial portal additions. He wanted him to enter the portal. He wanted to add him, but the kid would not enter the portal. Stayed at Toledo. NIL money was not, I mean, he didn't get really any money in terms of NIL money at Toledo. Worked on his craft, did what he was supposed to do, developed, turns into a first-round draft pick, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Tremendous pick in the first round. Top-end speed. You know, it just truly goes to show, and it really shuts down all that other BS around the country where, you know, these guys are chasing the logo. Do not chase the logo. Chase a place that truly wants you to go there, truly values you, will take care of you while you're there, will develop you, and will get you to the NFL. Because if that's not showing it, I don't know what is. Toledo's in the MAC conference, which, again, the MAC continues to push out great players. And there is no slight to anything in terms of the MAC conference because they push out talent across the board, especially two quarterbacks. I mean, you look at the information and the players that have come out through there. It's good development. It's good players. It's good coaching, you know. And I think that it really goes to show you do what you're supposed to do. Doesn't matter where you go to school at or where you're at in terms of Division I. I got news for you. You're getting drafted. They'll find you. And also, I kind of thought it was kind of funny that it kind of also says that really Alabama has across the board, they clearly have guys internally that look at certain players on other teams during the year. That's what that tells me, that they're currently scouting players on other teams. But I digress. I won't go into that because the conversation I have with coaches around the country that continually show me text messages, DMs, you know, the conversation around NIL, but also, too, just how certain teams are looking at certain players that aren't even in the portal. And Pitt has certainly been a victim of that. Numerous teams around the country have been victim of that. It's a fact. So, but it's just crazy to see that kind of conversation go on national television. Is it true that since every Junko has to play the Pitt, that just let Aunt Mary Junko walk on last week? There's a lot going on in that. There's a lot going on in that comment. I won't go into too much, but Junko is still on the roster. He will more than likely be the starting punter. Much appreciated. You're the best, my friend. Keep killing it. Jason, you're the best as always. Again, if you have not done so, guys, hit the like button for our guy, Pitt fans. Hit the like button on the video, guys, right below. But also, too, if you know friends or anybody, subscribe to the channel. It certainly helps out with the algorithm. We continue to grow at a rapid pace, which is incredible. Again, if you haven't done so, hit the like button just below and then hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. Which new coach do you think has the best ability to land sneak in for big fish recruits? I felt like it was Underwood the last couple of years, but he struggled landing them in the end. Yeah, Underwood, I think, tremendous character, was a well-loved coach, to say the least. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's an incredible man. That's why he's up in the National Football League now. That was his goal to get there. But from coaches I talked to around the country, there were times last year when teams would go to face Pitt, and then on film, the wide receivers didn't exactly look like they were coached up very well. That's just what I was told around the country, and especially too in the ACC from people that we faced. I mean, there were about 3 or 4 teams that told me this. That was a question mark. I think, Coach Underwood got us into certain rooms. Didn't close everybody, but he also closed Dejon Reynolds. He closed Kenny Johnson. Those are 2 guys that are going to be efficient starters for us this year. Closed Kanate Mumfield. That's another guy. So, I mean, he certainly did a good job. Brought in talent here. That's to say the least. I'm excited to see what J.J. Laster does. Obviously, J.J. Laster, the new wide receiver coach at Pitt, obviously was FCS wide receiver coach of the year. You certainly don't get that recognition from anywhere or just out of the blue, especially in the FCS. Plenty of good coaches in the FCS that are currently down there. Moved on. Obviously, he went to Old Dominion, got a promotion there. And from people that I've talked to, in terms of analysts that are down at, and coaches, one coach down at Old Dominion, the first thing they said is that he was almost resetting their recruiting board. I mean, this guy is a very well-known guy in terms of the Florida area, loves to recruit, never settles, really an efficient guy in terms of what he looks for, and especially to demand. I posted a video on X not too long ago talking about how he loves players, but guess what? He coaches them hard. Job is to coach them hard now and to love them later. And I love that comment from him. And I think that he's an aggressive recruiter. We've seen it on the recruiting trail so far. He's gone after numerous 4-star recruits. We've got guys that are coming in currently right now I like the guy he landed currently that we have in the recruiting class that we landed last week, a guy that's known for speed, 6-foot wide receiver, a guy with speed. He just continues to look at certain guys that he knows he wants to fit in this offense, and speed's one of them. It's very clear in this offense moving forward, the first thing you got to have in this Cade Bell offense is speed. It's that simple. They want guys that will fly by you, they'll go down the field, and it's currently showing that in the passing game, they want to be able to hit the deep ball. There's no more 5-yard outs. There's no 5 more. There's just the whole throwing under or halfback screens, which we'll continue to see a little bit with Cade Bell. But obviously, too, just the check downs, you're not going to see that kind of stuff. You're going to start seeing the ball really get pushed down the field, which is really good. I love he's an aggressive play caller. He's certainly not scared to call certain plays. You won't see the 20 times in a game, the halfback swing route. We're going to push the ball down the field, and we're going to move at a rapid pace. And also, too, fans did not see that during the spring game. The tempo that this team goes at is going to be light years different than what any of you guys saw on Saturday, but two or three Saturdays ago, 2 Saturdays ago, or anything you saw last year. The days of waiting for 20 seconds and then moving are over. This team will move at a very rapid pace, and obviously, too, if they're up big, they'll certainly slow it down, and they're not going to be dumb, but it's going to look like a very different offense, I can tell you that. I love how Brookins threw shade at Hayes and Dion. Yeah. I don't know if he was throwing shade or anything like that. Obviously, I'm not going to speak out towards it, Adam, but obviously when you see the clicks and whatnot, it's all about hard work. Again, there were guys that certainly loved Dayon Hayes, and there are a lot of people that didn't like Dayon Hayes, especially with ego and whatnot, especially too how he went out, I don't have a problem with a guy going look for another opportunity. Look at the prime example, Solomon DeShields, Christian Veyer. Solomon DeShields did it right way. He committed to Texas A&M, but wasn't bashing his teammates on the way out. I just think that's Dayon being Dayon. So, wish him nothing but the best to Colorado. Thoughts on Elliott Donald? Well, Hollywood Titan, he continues to move up the board. I mean, he's a guy, he's going to get playing time this year. I think Sean Fitzsimmons continues to be that guy at the front. He's had a hell of a camp. He'll go into the summer as one of the starters. I think when you look at on the guys that will start beside him or get work in there with him, kind of funny, actually. I have a list here of D tackles. Obviously, Scott Fitzsimmons, Nick James, Elliott Donald, Nakai Johnson had himself a hell of a camp. I think he found his position. I think the next couple of years, you're going to see Nakai Johnson really take off at defensive tackle. From what I've heard, he just continues to look good. I think that really he's that fast twitch in the middle, can certainly wreak havoc. Not saying he looks like, not comparing him to first-round draft pick Elijah Kansas yet, but certainly has the ability, moves quick, a guy that's built like a truck. But he's a guy, when you look at him in the middle of that offensive line, he can move. And I think it really fits him well, and I think he's going to take off this year. Obviously he came in as a 4-star defensive end. I just think at 6'2", he's just going to be a guy in the middle there, can certainly move around and be that next potentially Elijah Kansas or Jalen Twyman. The guys like that, man, they come in this Pitt defense and we play vertically. When you're an undersized defensive tackle, you thrive in Pitt's defense because we don't play horizontally. We want to get up the field, move guys off the ball, move them to the side, shed them, and then make an opportunity for a tackle for loss or get a sack. It's that simple. Create pressures. That's why the last 5 years, besides last year, Pitt's done a hell of a job in the top 3, top 2. And some of those years, I think 2 or 3 years out of those 5 years, we were number 1 in sacks. Numbers speak for themselves. But Elliott Donald, to answer your question, Hollywood Titan, continues to jump. Geez, we're already 40 minutes in. Geez, you guys have some really good questions. If you're the guy, they'll find you anywhere. Amen, Jason. It's the truth, brother. Boy. Lincoln, yes. We won't go on this topic, Jason, but yeah, Lincoln, I'm not a big fan. How many guys need to hit the portal, get to 85 plus, add some guys? Adam, what I do know is that currently what we know is that they're at 85. I think potentially there's some probably walk-on guys that had scholarships last year. They probably rescinded those. So it's on a year-to-year basis. Also, too, you may see a couple more guys go in before Tuesday. Tuesday's the last day that the portal's open. And then once it closes, you can't jump in it. Obviously, if you're in the portal after Tuesday, you can go anywhere you want still. but obviously it just closes to where you can't jump in it. So I think you'll probably see two, maybe three more names go in there. I don't expect any big names to go through there at all. But at the same time, though, I don't expect any big names to go in there, but you'll probably see a couple more go in there. But I think Pitt's probably going to try to add 5 guys in the portal. You saw one today with Jaremiah Angelin, which is a great start. Again, great football player, great family. I mean, that's just a great ad to start when we're looking in the spring terms of the spring transfer portal. Great start for a former 4-star defensive back in the SEC. Can't ask for more than that. How many more players does Pitt add post-spring? I think they added 1 today. I would say 4. I would say 4 more. Think QB Matt Sieg from Fort Cherry fits into Pitt's new offense. If so, think we can keep him at home. Jake, well, is Matt the one? Who's the one that just committed to Missouri? Guys, help me out with that. He's not the one who's committed to Missouri. God, I can't remember what year he is. I'll get back to that question in a second, Jake. Get back to me on that, what year he is. Thanks for taking my question. Great work you're doing, Hollywood Titan. I appreciate it, man, anytime. Do you think 10 wins would get Pitt? Oh, Zollers. Brock, I'll get back to that question in a second. Brock, thank you, Zollers. That was Zollers that went there. Yeah, never mind. Sieg, now I remember from Fort Cherry. Yes, he would certainly fit this. There's going to be a lot of competition to get him across the board. He's a well sought after quarterback. When you look at this system, it's RPO based, and you got to be able to throw the football, especially down the football field, and move at a rapid pace. He certainly fits that. I would love to have him here. Is there going to be an easy slam dunk? Heck no. The guy's well thought after. There's plenty of guys going after him. I know for a fact from people that I've talked to, he's very high. I think it's a little bit different than Zollers. Zollers had Pitt higher up. But I think it came down to NIL money, and Mizzou chopped out a lot of money. I think for Sieg, NIL will play a factor, but I think that he has a Pitt a little bit higher. I think he's really interested in Cade Bell, and the Cade Bell and him have had I'm more than willing to bet they probably had some conversations here and there. But from between the staff that's recruiting him, he's a well sought after guy, and he would certainly fit this offense. Do you think 10 wins would get Pitt into the playoff? Depends on the rest of the board. I think 10's pushing it. One, obviously, if you win your conference, you're automatically in. But obviously, 2, you look at Pitt's schedule. We'll continue. Obviously, they're out of conference schedule. If I even have it up here, let me see Pitt's schedule here. It's good. It's a good one this year. Let's see here. So, yeah, obviously they have Kent State week 1. Week 2, they have Cincinnati. We'll see how they are. Obviously, Big 12 opponent. Obviously, at the backyard brawl, North Carolina, Cal, Syracuse, SMU, Virginia, Clemson, Louisville. I would say if you have 10 wins, there's a hot chance because obviously I think from what I was told, Cincinnati will be better this year. There's a lot more hype around West Virginia this year. We'll see if, I think the question that I think West Virginia is going through right now in terms of their schedule was that, were they a one-year wonder? They had 9 wins last year, but they didn't beat one team that finished with a winning record. That's a concern. Was Neil Brown just a one-year wonder? Is he going to jump on board? We'll continue to see what that is. They got 9 wins last year. Obviously, it helped out with, they faced North Carolina without the 3rd overall draft pick in terms of Drake May, quarterback. Obviously, that's a big difference. I think overall, this is just, and when you look at it, 10 would maybe get him in there. It just depends on the rest of the other field. What do the other teams look like? If they have one other loss, if they just got one loss, you're not getting in. It's going to be a tough battle. And there's a lot of good games that are out there. But I think for Pitt standards, 10-2 would be great, obviously. But I think the biggest thing, just win your conference and you're in. That certainly helps. But 10, there's certainly a conversation for that. 10-2, because now it's a 14-team playoff, and you have, what is it now? The Power 4, then 1 Power 5 team. So you have 7 at large bids. I think 10 wins may get you in, but it's going to be close. Donovan Reed, good afternoon. JJ Cade Bell is going to get a top 4 and 5 stars from Florida, Georgia. It will be a lot easier at Pitt. He got big 3 and 4 stars at Western Carolina. That's a very good point. Obviously, Donovan Reed, extremely happy to have him and his whole family here, for obviously at Pitt. We are excited about that. let me tell you something. Reed is going to be an absolute stud. His son's going to be a stud this year at Pitt. Obviously, I call him a fire hydrant. Guys just tough as nails. Reminds me a lot like Jalen Warren with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Small in stature, but the guy is a truck. Just loves contact. If anything, I think sometimes he may try to avoid, trying not to go around people, just wants to go through people. The close scrimmage, he looked great. Had a 60-yard TD run. Just speed, took off. Once he hit the second level, it was gone. I mean, the guy just took off. But also the spring game, too, you saw a really good run. Took it to the house. It's just going to be really good. I'm excited for that. But Donovan, to your point, I mean, he has done it. I mean, what's kind of funny is you bring that up. I went back and looked at the quarterbacks that he brought into Western Carolina. Anybody that I've talked to, he's just very good at evaluating talent across the board. And like you said, whether it's Florida, Georgia, I think he's done a good job. He's done a little bit in Texas. I did see that. In the Virginia area, I think he's done really good there, and in North Carolina. I actually like those a lot. I think he's an aggressive recruiter. The guy never stops working. That's a positive. But also, too, I just love how he's a younger guy. And I say a younger guy, he's my age. I mean, I'm 29. I think he's 29 or 30, something like that. But just innovative. I love the guy. He's just always positive, always pushing people. He wants perfection. Coaches hard. And from everything I've heard, the players love him. So I'm excited. And Donovan, to your point, man, I hope you're right. Just in getting those quarterbacks, because he's shown it in the past. And I agree, getting to here, and obviously near the Power 4, it'll certainly be easier. But he's just a likable guy. And I think when you look at his offense overall and the production at the FCS level, to where he was in the top 5 every year, if not number 1, a number of those years, you got to love it. That's why we're happy to have him here, and happy to have all you guys here. I hope Pitt lands a DN from Miami, 6'6", 260. So that leads us in here, because we're in the 47 minutes here. So before I ask any other ones, how would you rank our transfer class? I may do a video on that, Brock, because I got to combine everybody from, because for me personally, I rank our transfer class really high. And the reason why is because the players that we brought in are not, lacking talent. These guys have shown to have talent, but more importantly, just over a long span of period. I mean, we've gotten guys from Kansas State, Nebraska, Clemson, obviously now Kentucky. I can go across the board. I mean, we're getting talent from the Power 4, and then from guys we take from a lower level, it's the top guy on their team. I like it a lot. Indiana, obviously with Nick James coming from IMG Academy. But before we get into it here, I want to go over a couple of these names, obviously, from guys that we've talked about here. Drop this off here. And let me see here. I have it here. Portal names, okay? Guys that Pitt's currently looking at, if they've had conversations or reached out. The first one, obviously, it was kind of funny. I had this list already made up. Jaremiah Angelin was a guy they talked to. Obviously, he committed today. One guy to look at here, Amir Herring, offensive lineman from Michigan. He currently hit the portal recently. It was a 4-star offensive lineman that came out, was well-renowned. Obviously, Pitt was in the thick of it for a long time. Comes from a great family, hardworking player. I think when you look at him overall, he's a hell of a football player, big in stature. He would certainly fit in here very well. Was looked at and realized I think he played a little bit of guard and tackle. Personally, I think he can play both. I think he'd be really good at guard. A guy that we certainly can take a look at. He's had contacts and certainly get it. But the biggest thing with him, obviously, like all these guys that we've contacted, numerous competition across the board, but he just fits it in terms of talent and character. He just has everything that you want in terms of a guy that wants to come here. But we've had contact with him. Another guy, Jacob Bostic, wide receiver out of Iowa. Talked to him a little bit. Talked about how, Pitt's his dream school. Loved it coming out. Obviously, we just didn't have enough room the last time. Went to Iowa, talked about how, Iowa was a good fit for him because obviously he liked the people up there. But when you look at overall, you look at Jacob Bostic when he was coming out, he had Pitt high on his list, but just numbers-wise, we couldn't make it work. Jacob Bostic, a 6'3" wide receiver, really good with speed. Obviously, I think with the one thing we are lacking in terms of the wide receiver room is just size. Kenny Johnson has size. I think Konate Mumfield has good size. Lamar Seymour size. But in terms of guys that you just want one more guy, I would certainly maybe add one more guy. Jacob Bostic certainly fits that mold. And a guy, he will be a redshirt freshman or true sophomore. I think it's a redshirt freshman coming into this year. So we'll continue to monitor him. He's been contacted. A name to watch here, Anthony Johnson, defensive end, Illinois and Youngstown State. He was at Youngstown State, went to Illinois. A guy 6'3", 265. He's a guy who's really aggressive, loves to play violent with his hands, very physical at the point of attack. I think he does a really good job getting upfield. He's looking for that type of defense that certainly has aggressiveness, loves to play vertical, not horizontal, likes to make tackles for losses, very aggressive. And obviously, when you look at Pitt, we are running a defense that's extremely aggressive. It can be risky at times, especially for how risky we are in terms of blitzes, disguising blitzes. Kay Bell even talked about how just when preparing for the season, it's good to go against Pitt's defense because it's so aggressive. But he's a guy to certainly watch out for. Anthony Johnson, defensive end out of Illinois. I feel like I'm talking like the NFL draft almost. Like we're looking at guys in like certain areas of college. The fifth guy on the list here, Zachariah Owens, offensive lineman from Clemson. He certainly has offers from Oklahoma, Michigan, NC State, and Auburn, just to name a few. We've made contact to push for a visit. Really good football player out of Clemson. Big guy. Certainly really agile, can play guard or tackle. I think when he gets here, obviously, I think when you look at Jeremy Darveau, he'll be able to take a look at him, especially footwork-wise. Is he aggressive enough, or in terms of athletic ability, can he play guard, or they stick him at tackle? We'll continue to monitor that. Another name here, Raylan. If I can look at my own writing here, Raylan Sharp, wide receiver out of Missouri State, out of the FCS level. Obviously, if you remember, we had out of Missouri State, we had a linebacker come out of there. Guys, certainly helped me out in the comments section with his name. Drawing a blank on his name already. Really good football player. I really liked him, especially for the year we had here with him. Raylan, out of wide receiver out of Missouri State, currently has offers from Arkansas, Texas A&M, Duke, and Washington. A guy that's certainly sought after. Speed. Again, wide receiver room, the first thing you got to mention is speed. He's got it. A guy that certainly had plenty of production while he was at Missouri State. A guy to watch. Another guy here, wide receiver, Jacoby Jones, wide receiver out of Ohio, currently has offers out of Oklahoma State, UCF, Florida, Arkansas, and Washington as well. We're on that board to where we're trying to get a visit. Certainly, guys, we're taking a look at. These are all wide receivers with bigger in stature, bigger in size. That's kind of what they're looking at, maybe adding one more guy with size. He certainly fits that mold. Then, obviously, too, Josh McCartney, defensive end out of Eastern Michigan, has offers from West Virginia, Cincinnati, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. You also have here Jared Harrison Hunt, defensive end out of Miami. We're pushing him to try to get a visit, from what I was told. Looking to get a visit with him. And also, too, Jaden Wayne, who's, a top 40 edge rusher in the 2023 class. He was at Washington today, has an offer from Washington. He was currently there this past weekend, liked the visit. Didn't commit from everything I saw or everything I've heard from there. Know some coaches over there. From what I was told, he did not commit while he was there, but he did like the visit a lot. Brian Williams Owens committed to Colorado. Oh, man, Zachariah Owens, yeah, offensive lineman Clemson. Thank you for that, by the way. Okay, cross him off that list then. Well, so Zachariah Owens is off the list for anything with depth. When you look at the last two here, Jaden Wayne, I think we're really good and close with Jaden Wayne. Again, he was out at Washington today, or this past weekend. Brock, thank you, by the way. Wiltz, thank you. Tyler Wiltz that we had from Missouri State, just good talent out of Missouri State. They developed really good talent down there. But Jaden Wayne, defensive end out of Miami, was a top 40 edge rusher and top 40 player in the 2023 class. was a true freshman last year at Miami. Didn't see any time. Went into the transfer portal. He's out of IMG Academy. Obviously, too, he was teammates with Nick James when he was there. Nick James, obviously, a defensive tackle we had. He's currently on the roster from Indiana. Got him as a transfer from Indiana, was at IMG Academy. Jaden Wayne currently has offers from what I saw. Cal, UCLA, Washington, Kansas. Visit, and again, was at Washington this past weekend, but did not commit, which is good to know. But guys, across the board, I mean, that's just 10 guys off the what I was able to talk to, what I was able to talk with my sources on. Just 10 guys that have already been contacted. And you look across the board, there's plenty of talent. I mean, you look at the talent that they're looking at is really good. Now it's just kind of, can they close it? Can they get into that war room to where, hey, we're able to close it? They did it today with Jaremiah Angelin. And you look at a lot of these guys. Some of them guys were on that list. They're probably going to be looking for NIL. We'll see where we battle up and hold up with that in terms of a lot of those teams. Everyone in terms of their NIL collectives, where they at in terms of their salary cap, where they at. But a lot of these guys know what they're looking for. Jaremiah Angelin was one of those guys. He was a true freshman last year. Didn't see any time. Tore his ACL before the season started, but had a tremendous spring camp. Again, tremendous player overall. We were able to close that. Now moving forward, we'll see what it looks like. But overall, you look at that list. I mean, it looks good. And I think that now the cornerback's off the board, I really put it number one, defensive end. My biggest one would be what we need is defensive ends. One, because of just current numbers. I would say here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We currently got 8 defensive ends on the roster. I'd say right now the ones I would trust to put into a game for sure, Nate Matlack, Jimmy Bear Scott, Sincere Edwards, and Bam Brema. I think those would probably be your top 4. If a game started today, I think some people would try to have the argument to say, it'd be Nate Matlack and Bam Brema. I personally think if a game started today, I think it would be Nate Matlack and Jimmy Bear Scott. Jimmy Scott's had a hell of a camp. He continues to get better and better. Between the close scrimmage and the spring game, you saw a guy who was just able to get after it, got after the quarterback, created numerous times. He had sacks during the spring game and during the close scrimmage. A guy that's certainly getting off the ball, very aggressive with his hands, violent hands. I think he just continues to get better. He's a guy that I think overall, when you look at his development, he had great coaching in high school with Coach McCann, had a great job there. But I think the biggest thing is since he got here, obviously he had Charlie Partridge, and I think Tim Dowse is doing a really good job overall with developing that room. And obviously, too, Bam Brema, but also, too, Sincere Edwards. Let me tell you guys, this young man is going to play a lot this year. And because, one, obviously everyone talks about, his physical stature, a guy who just walked in, and you heard during the spring camp, walked in and was squatting 400 pounds. Same thing with Francis Breu. He's going to get time this year in the defensive tackle room. I think overall, when you look at Sincere Edwards, he has just climbed up the depth chart. One, we could talk about numbers, but just his overall talent level and hard work. I mean, he's just to the grindstone, a guy that watches film. I think it's good to have guys like Jimmy Bear Scott and Nate Matlack who have really taken him under his wing. They talked about how Dayon Hayes was here, was able to show them film, things of that nature, what to watch for. I think that certainly has helped. But overall, you look at that room, obviously you have Zachary Crothers, who's a true freshman, Maverick Gracia, who I think is going to be really good from Florida, David Ajebwe, the defensive end transfer from Clemson. From what I was told, didn't have the camp that they were truly expecting, still learning the style of the defense. But they said through the summer, going into the fall, those things will be worked out, and he'll be a guy that certainly gets some time, especially, too, in terms of being able to fight on the depth chart for where he lands. I think that was really good. So overall, I think really you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would say 5. And obviously, 2, you got Ty Uhas that's down there. He can play defensive end or defensive tackle, a versatile guy. Hometown hero out of Pittsburgh Central Catholic. We'll continue to monitor him. Really good player. Was really happy we were able to land him. Really shut down his recruiting style early because he was just so focused on Pitt. Wanted to go to Pitt. You love to see that from the hometown heroes, but more importantly, even from schools like Pittsburgh Central Catholic, Aliquippa. That's what you want to see. But obviously, too, you look at the D tackle room. I gave you the D ends. The D tackle room right now. You've got Scott Fitzsimmons. I think he's a guy that's going to start right away. I think he'll be one of the guys up front there really early. I think Nick James, Elliott Donald, and Nakai Johnson are in the same world right now. They're fighting to see who's going to be able to start. Nakai Johnson had a hell of a camp. Again, I talked to you guys earlier about it. I think he's done a hell of a job. I think he can actually have a very good argument in terms of starting alongside Fitzsimmons. I think he's a guy that can start alongside him. Really good camp. Nick James has done a good job. Elliott Donald has made strides this year. I think he's done a great job. He'll get a lot of playing time this year. I think he continues to get better, and I think just the more and more coaching he gets, the better off he gets. I think he'll have a lot of say this year. Obviously, too, Isaiah Ghost Neal. He is, again, a guy that continues to disrupt in practice. Disrupted in terms of being able to do a good job in the pass game, creating pressure on the quarterback, but also to the run game. He was really good and efficient, being able to stop the run, especially at the line of scrimmage, moving his guys off the ball. Did a really good job. He's always been fun to watch, and he'll continue to get better, and a guy that will certainly vie for playing time this year. And, of course, you've got the true freshmen that are here. Francis Brayu, I think he's going to see time this year. He's just done a hell of a job. Again, a physical specimen. And, of course, Jasir Whittington, the 4-star defensive tackle out of the middle of the state. IHOP. Wow. Jesus. That was a good one. The high school, obviously, in the middle of the state. I can't even pronounce the name of the high school. It's something like that. But it's not IHOP, though. Really good football player. He'll be here. I think if he's not already on campus, I think it was shortly after the spring camp. He was on campus. Almost said Brandon Lindsay. Cam Lindsay, the 4-star linebacker out of Aliquippa. He's currently on campus. He'll get ready for the linebacker room. He'll look really good. But then, of course, Ty Uhas could play defensive tackle. They needed to. Again, good player. We'll continue to see where he goes in terms of which position he is best off at. Mark, thank you for putting it on here. Yes. And also, too, it's out in Philly. Just a really good football school. They compete, obviously, with St. Joe's and whatnot. Really good football out there, along with the Whippeal. Just really good. There were a couple other questions I saw on here. If Pitt lands Thero, Brock, I may actually do, before I get to that one, Brock, I may do a video on this one ranking our transfer class, each transfer we've brought in. I think I'm going to do that, actually. So I'm very appreciative that you just said that, because that gives me an idea to go over to talk about each player with you guys. Current class. So I love the live shows, baby. You guys bring up good ideas for me to talk about. Wolf, if Pitt lands Thero, can we consider Kentucky Pitt's AAA minor league team? First MJ Devonshire, now Anglin Jr., and now Thero. I would say so. I mean, Kentucky does a good job in terms of development and what they're able to do, but I think there's just some guys that don't fit the system. Obviously they've had a lot of talent go through there. I think they've developed a number of good talent, like 2-stars, almost like what Pitt has. They're a lot in terms of a lot alike of what Pitt does. So, which is kind of funny that we're taking from them. It's almost like the round robin and just how it works, and how just the world of college football is a lot closer than what we think it is. But I'll tell you what, Anglin is a damn good football player, and he will play here. And I would be shocked if he doesn't see playing time in the beginning of this year, or vies for a starting spot. I mean, that's how good this kid is. Just a very good player, hard worker, great work ethic. That's what you want. And I'm very happy to have him here. But also, too, with Thero, I hope we land him, man. Have another good, really 3 years in a row going to this next year. If Pitt basketball has another good year, that'd be 3 years in a row. We already have back-to-back years of Pitt basketball winning 20-plus games. That's huge. You love to see that. But it's allowing Jeff Cable to get on a rhythm and on a move to where it continues to get better. So we'll continue to monitor what that looks like. Obviously, too, if you haven't done so, subscribe to Alliance 412. Help out any way you can. We continue to get these guys, and obviously, the more we're able to donate to Alliance 412, the better. It's certainly making us competitive. It keeps us competitive, but also, too, you're going to start to see if the fan base truly gets involved to where it just starts from top to bottom. We get everybody in Panther Nation involved. Pitt can be a force. Pitt can be a force in this. Plus, on top of that, I know Alliance 412 is really working with the city of Pittsburgh in terms of Fortune 500 companies. We're lucky to be in a city like Pittsburgh with so many Fortune 500 companies. Currently, right now, I think we have eight Fortune 500 companies that are currently here. Everything from top to bottom. We're working with them. And just Alliance 412 does a really good job, and it just from top to bottom. Just the good people that work. Obviously, everyone knows, Chris Bickle and everything he's done for Pitt. The $20 million donation a couple of years ago, that was huge. Jeff Goldberg does a great job. John Pelusi, just the two guys that are just veterans of what they do. They've done a really good job. They continue to be aggressive, find new ways to get more people involved. That's always huge. And then obviously Doug Whaley on board at Alliance 412, obviously the former general manager of the Buffalo Bills, Pitt man himself. He's done an incredible job. And obviously, too, working in other states. I know Alliance 412 was actually going out to Arizona, going out there and working with a whole entire group. I think it was a couple thousand people they were looking to work with, which was huge. So it's just good across the board in general. So Pitt continues to get better, but continue to support it. And again, I'm positive like anybody else. I take the positive side of everything. I am very, I can be, as you guys have seen here, I can be very critical at times, especially on Twitter, during games, especially too. But the sky is not falling. I think that the fatalistic part of the fan base gets there. I think just people just not being informed on just it happens to every school. That kind of stuff pops up everywhere it's been. But overall, Pitt is in a great spot across the board. We're at 85 scholarships. It's done a really good job in terms of being able to fill out this roster. You'll probably see a couple more go in the portal because I know Pitt's probably going to try to add 5 to 6 guys in that range. In a perfect world, they got their cornerback. They'd like to get maybe a couple more offensive linemen for depth purposes, just because when we saw so many injuries last year, we just don't want to go through that again. We want to make sure we get 10, 11 wins this year, get back on track to where we were the last couple of years prior. Also, too, offensive line for depth, but defensive end. I think defensive end is really number one at this point, to where you add 1, maybe 2 more guys, and Pitt's certainly on board with that right now, going after competitively to where they're adding, which is really good. Brock, thanks, JJ. No problem. You're the man for bringing up that idea. Brian Williams, of course, the man. Appreciate you, JJ. Held a Pitt. Appreciate you, man. Everything you do. Tim Bales, good show, brother. I appreciate it. Guys, if you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Spread it on X. Spread it with your friends, anybody you know, on Pitt Panther Fanatics, on Facebook. Anything is appreciated. We're continuing to climb. And again, we'll be having player interviews being dropped. We had a commit interview recently. Once May hits, we'll be able to drop all that kind of stuff up to the player. Just mutual respect. If they ask me to do something, I do. It's pretty simple. It's also the reason why I don't give out any commitments, anything like that. Coaching hires are different. I drop coaching hires because they're coaches. They already know where they're going. It's not that big of a deal. Especially too, when I get the okay from a source, I'm dropping it. Especially when they're players from the school they're coming from. That's a big thing. But again, it's across the board, especially with commitments from players. I always love players to make their own commitments on their own. I don't ever break that kind of stuff. That's just I don't know. That's kind of crappy and shitty on my end if I ever did that. You know what I mean? So always let the player announce on their own. Always have the respect of that. That's why I have such great sources, but also too just great people involved. So it's always good to have it. Good show. Again, yep, hit the like button. Again, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Again, we'll see you guys next time. We'll drop videos during the week, but of course, we'll see you here next Sunday, as always, on the Sunday Conversation, which has become a super, super show, as always. Guys, of course, Calvin, the man, you're so informative with everything on Pitt football. Hail to Pitt. Thank you. Show, love, subscribe. Again, guys, as always, Will, thank you. Guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you on next time on the next Sunday Conversation. Be good out there.